Hey guys, welcome back to the early bird special of Sports with Mono and Mono here at 8 a.m. this morning. But I'm sure everybody set their alarms to join our show live. And of course, I'm here with Elijah Weintraub, who is my co host. Um, Eli, how was your week?
It was a busy week, and we have an exciting weekend of lots of football. We got 3 straight days of football as we near the finale and a great championship Monday ahead. It's a so-called snowy weekend here in Jersey, so that means it's perfect time to sit on that couch and watch some football. And we
You
kick
bet.
it all off with the Mono-Logue, sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Summerhill, New York. And Jim, that belongs to you.
Okay, Eli. So I got the monologue this week. And I was on the fence with a couple of things. I was going to talk about the coaching carousel, but we'll cover that when we get to our NFL segment. But this is more about baseball. And this was a busy week with signings, and some of them I just scratchers to me. I mean, we're talking about astronomical money for him as not great players, decent players. But let's go down this list, and it starts with Alex Bregman, right? Who goes signs with the Cubs, 5 years, $175 million. So I guess that equates to what, $35 million a year
Pretty much,
for
yeah.
a guy who is a 272 lifetime hitter with only 2 seasons of 100 runs batted in. Now, again, we keep talking about, you hear a lot of discussion about lockouts and so forth, but in this situation, when you're paying these guys this kind of money, this is on the owners. And yeah, there may be some inequities about the ability, and we'll talk about the Dodgers in a second, that the small market teams, the Nationals, right? The Pirates, the Cincinnati Reds, that they don't have that kind of financial money to spend, but the money is just becoming outrageous. It's becoming like the NBA, where average players are getting astronomical numbers. So
Hmm.
that's one. And then the big signing was Kyle Tucker
Yeah.
for an outstanding amount of $60 million a year for a guy with a lifetime batting average of 273. And again, only 2 seasons of 100 runs batted in. And the third, which was a big kind of surprise signing for me, because um, the Mets had to do something. They did make a legitimate offer for Tucker, astronomical, of course, but he decided to go to the Dodgers. And Eli and I were talking just before the show about the money that the Dodgers are spending. And hey, if you have it, you do it. Um, but are people going to go to games to see Kyle Tucker or Bo Bichette or Alex Bregman? And put that into perspective of guys who were the best players in the game, right? Shohei Ohtani
Of
and
course.
Aaron Judge. So now these guys, Kyle Tucker is making more per season than Aaron Judge. For a guy with an over a 300 lifetime average, he drives in over 120 runs every season, and he hits 50 home runs. So, I'm baffled by the amount of money. And if this leads to a lockout, well, so be it. But I blame this on the owners for putting up this kind of money for mediocre players. And I know guys will have a lot of comments on this, and we welcome your call, your feedback. You can call in on the show and talk about this. But those were the three. So then the only real remaining major free agent is Corey Bellinger. And, Corey Bellinger, again, probably going to get the same kind of money, maybe not as much as Tucker, but they're all relatively a bit younger. But Bellinger is a 273 live hitter, again, with only 2 seasons of 100 runs batted in. I'm at an absolute loss for words at the money that's being thrown around Major League Baseball. And it's because you and I have always talked. This is why a family of four can't go to a baseball game without spending $500, and that's just cost prohibitive. So, Eli, what are your thoughts on these signings?
And your point is what Bill William Hathaway just said. And good morning to William. He says the Major League Baseball is almost there. The players are getting greedy, and the fans have to pay expensive tickets to go to the game. And you're absolutely right there, William. And you're absolutely right. My only question is, I don't really care so much about the Cubs and these other teams. My concern right now is where are the Dodgers getting this money from? Because they're paying guys like Shohei Ohtani. They're signing guys left and right. They just picked up Diaz from the Mets. I can go on with the list. Now they get Tucker. Where are you getting the money from, number one? And how many more players do you need on this Dodgers team? Because this is already a winning World Series Dodgers team with Shohei Ohtani minus the additions this past offseason. Now you're getting more additions. You're becoming even more powerful. Will there be another competitor in the MLB besides the Dodgers unless big injuries stop big players? Because right now what I'm seeing here is the Dodgers have already won the World Series with all these pickups. It's a bold take to say, but it's true.
Yeah. And when we look at the Mets signing Bo Bichette, we talked about this. Actually, it was our monologue a couple of weeks ago about the Mets.
Yeah.
Why they had a producing guy like Pete Alonso, and they just said, we're not going to pay you, but we're going to pay Bo Bichette $40 million with a 272 lifetime batting average, or his is a little higher. He's closer to 300. He's 294.
But does it matter?
That's my point, is saying, how could you pay him that money and not at least keep a homegrown New York Met? Yeah, it's crazy.
And he has the potential, especially when it comes to postseason. And that's always the key because, obviously the Mets didn't make it this year, but in the previous year, Pete Alonso was a star for the Mets in the postseason run. Now that he's gone, who's your star now? But that goes, same you could say with the Yankees, Corey Bellinger. We don't know what the situation down there is. Still, it's just a lot of very interesting signings. I mean, look, another one, Ranger Suarez, 5-year, $130 million with the Red Sox. That's another example right there. I mean, the money is getting out of control. They're trying to compete pretty much with the NFL with the money salaries, it looks like, at this point. It's crazy to think about that, too.
And right, but if you look at Ranger Suarez, I mean, his numbers right now, he's one of the better pitchers in Major League Baseball. So you can almost, quote unquote, justify that, but he's not even getting the money that these guys are making.
You're absolutely
it's becoming the NBA. And Eli, you and I have talked 1,000 times about the astronomical salaries that the NBA is paying. And we don't even hear that are making more than $20 million. And then the top echelon guys are making $60, $70 million. So, did the Yankees get a bargain with Aaron Judge 2 years ago by signing him? 100% they did. But then you can't say, excuse me, you can't say, you're not going to, I don't know. You can't pay somebody more than one of the best players in the game.
You're absolutely right. Matter for anybody who's watching at home, feel free to call in by scanning the QR code, and I'll get the link in the chat in a second, and or comment live. We also have Eric saying good morning to all and happy Saturday. Good morning and happy Saturday. And yeah, that's pretty much what's happening in baseball. A lot of changes, a lot going on there. We'll just have to wait and see what happens going forward. But let's go ahead and talk some NFL football because the NFL is what is the hot topic heading into the weekend. Of course, it's divisional round weekend. Of course, we have 4 games happening today, including the first time we see the 2 number 1 seeds coming out and playing, including the Seattle Seahawks and Denver Broncos. But the big storyline before we get even into the wild card game, talk about wild card into divisional round, is the New York Giants. As of right now, they're saying John Harbaugh will become their new head coach. Although the deal is not officially finalized, it is definitely looking very possible with the New York Giants and almost like a done deal, just waiting on a couple office stuff pretty much.
Yeah, and when we talk about this coaching carousel, which is really unprecedented, I don't recall there being 8 and 9 openings in the NFL for head coaches. But if you looked at the list, you probably, everyone I've talked to, and I'm a Giants fan too. That was the right choice for them, and they're working out the details. But it sounds like we got a coach that has been in this league for many years. He's won a Super Bowl. I like the fit. I didn't want to go with a young guy. We've tried this with McAdoo and Shermer and Joe Judge and Brian Dable. So this brings some credibility to a team that has potential. We talked about it, that there was a potential that he was going to go to Miami and
Yes,
probably could have got more money, but Miami doesn't have a quarterback. So he sees Jackson Dart as the
a
potential
star.
star. You're
But
right.
now the big
Exactly.
question is, does he have a lot more control, of the team? Because yeah, he's the head coach, but sometimes some organizations, the GM and the owner, they want full control. They still want to run everything, still want it to be their game. Do you think now he'll have more of a say and more of a control of the team, similar to what we saw maybe like with Aaron Rodgers when he was a New York Jet at one point, where he had a lot more control of the team, and maybe this is what they need at one point? Do you think that's possible?
I do. I think that's probably why right now the deal isn't quote unquote finalized. But I think with you know it comes with experience. Yes, the coach definitely has to have. You can't have a GM make all the potential signings and so forth. And we've seen what Joe Shane has done on several occasions. We've had a lot of injuries, and we didn't have adequate backups. So yeah, I think it's imperative, and that's what John Harbaugh signed off on, that he has to have some sort of say collectively with the GM. And I think that's what's going to happen. And I'm delighted with the selection, to be quite honest. I am.
Yeah, I'm happy too, and you know what? I think because they have a quarterback, and this is a team that has potential to even win the division. Heck, make a run of the playoffs at this point. So I'm very happy with the choice and the decision. Just want to make it, want to feel comfortable. Want to hear the words "it's finalized," because right now I don't see the words "finalized" just yet. I know it's definitely going to be official. But I just need the words "finalized," and I could say, yeah, we'll talk more about that. But another big news from the coaching carousel side of things. Mike Tomlin from the Steelers steps down from coaching. Will his next stop be media and entering the media industry of ESPN or Fox or CBS or one of those channels? Or is he going back to another team for coaching? As I called last week, I did say that Mike Tomlin was either going to get fired or something. He wasn't going to stay another year in Pittsburgh. Yeah, I was kind of right about that. I did not expect him to just quit the job pretty much. That came after the Steelers lost last week to the Houston Texans. The final score of that game, 30-6 that game, which was crazy, pretty crazy to think about that number. But the Mike Tomlin era is gone. And once again, you can argue with Tomlin. Fantastic in the regular season, but nothing done in the postseason. Always makes it, nothing ever happens. And I think that is the reason why he decided to quit it. I could tell you, if he didn't step down, he would have been fired. I could tell you that right now.
And you bring up a good point, Eli, about whether or not he's going to get immediately back into coaching. But there is a circumstance that's a little bit different, being that he stepped down. He's still under contract. So anybody that wants to make an offer to Mike Tomlin, that's going to involve a trade, meaning, you're going to have to give up either draft picks or somebody to get the rights from Mike Tomlin. And
Yeah.
so we don't know how that's going to play out. I don't think he's going to get right back into coaching. A lot of these guys take a year off, like McCarthy and so forth. And, he's still in play. So let's look at that. The coaching carousel. So if we had John Harbaugh at the top of the list as the most coveted coach, I guess that leaves Kevin Stefanski as the next big name coach, who's had success in Cleveland, but he was dealt a terrible situation that the owners
Of
made
course.
these decisions with Deshaun Watson. But remember, he also made the playoffs 2 years and had 11-win season twice. So he's still on the board. And then, we could speculate for days and days and days. You hear names like Chris Shula, who's Don Shula's grandson, right? We hear a lot of these offensive coordinators. Is there a guy like Ben Johnson out there that who has come to the Chicago Bears and made them credible in his first season. So I don't know where this is going to pan out, but I think once the domino fell for Harbaugh, and I think next up will be Stefanski, it's anybody's guess about who's going to be the next coach of those other 7 teams.
Absolutely, and it's a wide open carousel. We're gonna just have to see where the whole market stands, and I don't think we're gonna get another coaching signing until maybe after the Super Bowl. Is my next guess. I think Harbaugh is a big name, and I think he was the one that had to go before, right away. I just think it's gonna be a little while before we hear the next coaching, move. In my opinion.
Yeah, that remains to be seen. I mean, some of these teams. I mean, the Super Bowl is technically like what 4 weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah, no, 4
right?
weeks. Yeah.
So a lot of these teams, you can't sit around and speculate and wait. So I think there will be some signings before the Super Bowl, but yeah, there may be a few that
It may be a few more
wait.
weeks.
Maybe, yeah.
Enough for coaches. Let's go now to the not enough for coaches, but let's go now to talk about the actual games itself for tomorrow and today in the divisional round. We have 4 great games today. We're going to go to our picks in a little bit. But let's talk about some injuries to watch out for. Note for today: the Texans, Nico Collins, he is out for today versus out tomorrow versus the Patriots. That's a big name and a big loss for the Texans. Seattle Seahawks, Sam Darnold, he will play today, but is going to be questionable and not healthy because he has an oblique injury that he suffered last week during the offseason. Drew Lock is the backup if needed for Seattle in today's game versus the 49ers. And wide receiver Adam Thielen has retired from the NFL after 13 seasons, and the Eagles fired offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo. They'll now look for their 5th offensive coordinator in 5 years. That's a big spot right there, too.
Yeah, a lot of moving and shaking there. Sure.
A lot of great games last week, Jim, and we saw a lot of upsets, especially in the Saturday window. I mean, I don't think anybody saw the Rams-Panthers game being that close and exciting, and that goes to show you, are the Rams going to be for real heading into tomorrow's game? And how will they battle the weather? Because the weather is not looking good in Chicago. It's going to be very cold, potentially in the negative degrees by nighttime. Will that play a factor, into tomorrow's game versus the Bears?
Yeah, it's going to be a cold one. Yeah, and there's always that thing about a West Coast or a South team, like the Florida teams or whatever that they don't play well. These are human beings, and when you get on the football field, and I could vouch for this school football player, if it's cold. When you're a football player and you're on that field, you don't feel that cold at all. You don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the picks. And let's take a look at that standings chart. And I've gained a game. So I went last week 5-1. Jim, you went 4-2. The overall standing stands at 43-26, 40-29. I could technically come back and win this depending on how our picks go this week and next week and the Super Bowl. So it's still anybody's game. Still anybody's game. So we'll see what happens.
You certainly can. It's a horse race, my friend. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But congratulations on you picking up a game.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. But I will kick it off, I guess, with the picks. I guess it'll be my honor and privilege to start.
Please do.
We'll start off with the Saturday games. The number 6 Buffalo Bills are at the Denver Broncos today at 4:30 on CBS. Buffalo is a 1.5 favor, even though despite being away. And you know what? I don't trust Denver. I don't trust them at all. I don't think that they really are the number 1 seed. And I see Buffalo pulling off the quote-unquote upset, even though they're favored, 27-24. So I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
Next up, the number 6 49ers are at the number 1 Seattle Seahawks. Today at 8 o'clock on Fox. Seattle's a 7-point favor. We don't know what's up with Sam Darnold. That's going to be, up in the air situation, but it doesn't matter. I'm a Seahawks fan. I'm not picking against Seattle. 28-21. Give me the Seattle Seahawks. I think that was an obvious pick right there.
Okay. Yeah, and the question surrounding Darnold, Eli, is, he's quote unquote questionable. But that, this oblique thing, I guess it's more in the rib area or something like that. That could be extremely painful, certainly for a quarterback, but we'll see. All right, good pick.
All right, next we go to the Sunday games. First off, number 5 Texans at the number 2 Patriots tomorrow, 3 o'clock on ABC and ESPN. New England is favored by 3 points. Yeah, no. I'm going to go with the Houston Texans in this one, 20-18. Yes, they're out with no Nico Collins, but here's why I'm picking the Houston Texans. The Patriots did not look great last week versus the Chargers, despite getting that win. And I thought the Texans played really well. Even though they put most of their points in the fourth quarter, I thought the Texans played really well, and I think they're going to get the victory here. So give me the Houston Texans in this one.
Okay.
The last game, the number 5 Rams at the number 2 Bears. Sunday Night Football, 6:30 p.m. on NBC. I'm going to go, despite the cold, with the West Coast team, the Los Angeles Rams, 26-23 in this one. I'd probably be wrong on this pick because of the weather, but I just think that the Rams are the better team in this game. So I'm going to go with the Rams. My final picks are Bills, Seahawks, Texans, Rams. Jim, what do you got?
Okay. Well, we differ on a couple of them, so
That's good. That's good.
You're either gonna catch up or you're gonna fall back.
Fall behind.
All right. So the first game, Buffalo and Denver, and as you know, I've been all in on the Buffalo Bills all year long, and despite the fact that their wide receiving core hasn't, been adequate enough, but I give Josh Allen so much credit. He is so tough and he is so determined to get back to that opportunity to get to the Super Bowl without having to deal with Patrick Mahomes and all those. We know the backstory there, but I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills in this game because just like you, Denver, number 1 seed, but they barely won a lot of those games. We saw them play against the Jets and the Giants and so forth. But this is a very tough game. I think this is the toughest game to pick for the weekend. But I'm going to go with you. Same pick you made. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
Second game, San Francisco at your Seattle Seahawks, and I know you're excited that your team's back in the mix. And little questions surrounding Sam Darnold and so forth. The obvious scenario here is Seattle, because San Francisco is kind of decimated with injuries. They lost Kittle, and Fred Warner was considered to be questionable. He's been ruled out. But I am going to take the San Francisco 49ers to win this game on the road against the Seattle Seahawks.
Is there any reason why besides Darnold's injury?
Yes,
think that they're better.
I think
describe.
And I've underestimated maybe Brock Purdy a lot, as you said. I didn't necessarily consider him one of the top elite quarterbacks, but he's slowly proving me, or at least moving me more toward his side, that he is a legitimate player. He could run the ball. Half of his runs, of more than 15, 20 yards, have been for first downs. So he's an outstanding scrambler. And I think Christian McCaffrey, obviously, is the key to this game. So if he can get involved, but I'm going to take the San Francisco 49ers on the road to beat your Seattle Seahawks. Sorry about that.
I'm just shocked about that pick, honestly. That was the one pick I didn't expect you to go with. All right. Let's see what happens the rest of the way. I'm curious now.
All right. So we have the Houston Texans at the New England Patriots. And, this is not an easy game to pick either, because, Houston's defense, let's face it, they're outstanding. And, but CJ Stroud hasn't been proving to me that he's consistent enough to carry that team. And, Drake May, yes, he's young. So there's a little bit of vulnerability here. This is his first really, really big game. But I think he's legitimate. And I think New England and Mike Vrabel are primed for the upset. And I'm going to take the New England Patriots over the Houston Texans.
You see, I mean, I'm not against that pick, because I know that people are picking the Patriots and they are home. But, I don't know. I just see the Texans going there surprising. Wow. Okay. So let's see this next game. I'm curious now. What do you got for this one?
Well, listen, I have not been a supporter. I know one of our loyal listeners, Kenny, is a big Bears fan, and He believes they're legitimate, and no question, Ben Johnson has had a major impact on Caleb Williams' play. But I still think the year that Matthew Stafford has had, and this Puka Nakua,
Nakua.
he is one of the top players at that wide receiver position, and that combination. And I think they have a good enough running game that they could do that. But I agree with your pick, and I'm going to take the Rams on the upset. Well, they're
Wow.
actually
So
favored. They're favored on the road, but me and point spreads, that doesn't matter. I'm just
you don't believe in that stuff, but yeah.
no,
So
but I'm
you're
looking at that. So my
so we
picks
disagree on
are
2 games.
we disagree on 2 games. So somebody's either gonna widen their lead or somebody's gonna close the
Close
gap,
the gap.
and that's
Yeah, how do you like that? So by the way, his picks are Bills, 49ers, Patriots, and Rams. My picks were Bills, Seahawks, Texans, and Rams. Good luck and enjoy the games of the NFL. Um, with the NFL nearing the conclusion and end, that means college football is nearing the conclusion and end. As coming up on Monday is the national championship. Number 1, Indiana at number 10, Miami. Now, if you remember from last week's show, we did talk in depth and in detail about this game. We are both picking Indiana in this game. Any final thoughts heading into the national championship, and then we'll get into other college football notes?
yeah, and this is going to be the key. And obviously, as Brendan has brought up before, I mean, Miami's front four are very athletic, but Indiana has a great offensive line, and I think the season that Mendoza has had and the job that Signetti has done is almost unprecedented. It is one of the great sports stories of
Of all
all
time.
time to take a team that has never ever been in contention from a football perspective in such a short period of time. I just don't think they're going to leave this on the table. And listen, they've already signed a quarterback from the transfer portal for next year because we know Mendoza's coming out. Um, but I just can't see. I do give Carson Beck a lot more credit than other people do, and I think he's going to be a decent quarterback in the NFL. But I think right now, and Miami has playmakers. This isn't going to be a 50 some odd blowout like they did
In the
against
past couple of
Oregon.
years.
This
This
is
will
going to
actually
be
be
a
a good,
very
close game.
it's going to be a very competitive game because Miami has a lot of weapons. The kid Fletcher and the wide receiver Tony. These kids are really good football players. So
They are.
I'm looking forward to it. It's an exciting, and you know what I thought, Eli? It would have been just a great day in sports if we moved the NFL games up earlier, and then had the championship game at night on Sunday, being that Monday was a holiday and so forth. But the NFL does not want to allow anything to detract from their product. They don't want to share the spotlight with anybody. So that's how it's going to be.
But the good news is that's the only game for that's the good part. National championships. That's a plus.
Yep.
But
Yep.
other than that, though, we are in for a really good college football championship. And you said it best. Indiana was a team that only had 2 wins 2 years ago today, and now look at them now.
Yeah.
They have a shot at being national champions. It's unbelievable. They arrived there yesterday. Miami didn't have to worry about traveling because they are in Miami. That's where the championship is. But we're in for a good one. And let's go to some other notes in the college football world. We go to Dante Moore in Oregon as the Oregon quarterback. He announced that he will not be going to the NFL. He will not be declaring for the NFL draft. Instead, he'll stay another year in Oregon. Do you think this was the right decision? Do you think he's just trying to build up so he can be the number 1 quarterback next year? Or what are your thoughts about that?
I do think it's a smart decision for him to go back. I don't think he's polished enough. He's athletic as heck, no question about it.
Absolutely.
But they got a good program in Oregon, and now you're going to get, they're going to move on from Indiana after this drubbing. But Dan Lanning's a great coach. I think it's the right decision. It probably would have worked out. Yes, he probably would have been the second quarterback taken. So I think we're pretty sure Mendoza will go to the Raiders unless they make some dramatic change.
Which I don't think so, because the Raiders need a quarterback.
Yes, and you're right. And the Jets probably would have taken Dante Moore.
Right. So now
But
there goes
Dante,
the question: who do they get next?
exactly. But I don't think Dante Moore is polished enough to go and try to revitalize the New York Jets organization, which to me is an absolute disaster right now. And I think that Aaron Glenn was unimpressive to say the least as his first year head coach, and he stays. But I do
Uh,
have a couple other ones. We talk about guys staying. Excuse me, John Mateer. He's going to return back to Oklahoma, and he was a front running candidate for the Heisman Trophy. I really like this guy. So his draft stock could go extremely high and maybe surpass Dante Moore um, as one of the top quarterbacks drafted following this year. But he's returning to Oklahoma. And there were a couple of notable transfer portals, which we know, Eli, is just never ending. But Sam Levitt is going from Arizona State, and he's going to go to LSU. And so that was handpicked, I guess, by Lane Kiffin, who I wish
absolutely.
nothing but unsuccess after the way he left the Mississippi um, situation. Um, Dylan Riola, the Nebraska quarterback, he's transferring to Oregon. So that's kind of an odd thing. Although I don't think he's a top tier quarterback, he will be Dante Moore's backup quarterback. So that was a little bit of a surprise to me. And uh, considering what's going on in Michigan and the past 2 years with the Sharon Moore, but yes, they have a nice solid coach, Kyle Winningham. But Justice Haynes, who was their key running back there, has transferred to Georgia Tech. So again, Eli, we talk about nil and how much money these guys are making. So it's no surprise to see big names go to different
Absolutely.
schools.
We have a couple comments I want to get to. First, we have Andrew. He says, "Good morning, guys. Agree with the timing of games. We'd love to see college football playoff championships Sunday night. I agree with that, but we know the NFL how that works."
Yes, we do.
And we have from Twins 7599. He didn't want to play for the Jets, and you're absolutely right. And that was referring to Dante Moore, and maybe that is the reason why. And
That could very well be. Good
I
point.
believe we have a caller. We'll find out now. Mary Ellen is on the call line. Let's see if she's here.
That name sounds familiar to me.
Good morning. Can you hear us? Mary, you there?
Mary Ellen, check your volume, check your speaker. We'd love to hear from you. I think I know this person. Unfortunately, it's not coming up.
I think she has to clear the audio stuff. Maybe exit and come back in. Exit,
Okay.
come back in, and then see if your audio works. So we'll get maybe her back in a little bit.
Okay.
In the meantime, any other notes from the college football world?
No, I think we pretty much covered that pretty well there.
In depth. So let's go now to some college basketball because there was a couple big stories that we want to talk about. First, let's talk about that historic buzzer beater this week from SMU's Miller this week. It was filled with pyrotechnics like crazy on January 15th as he hit the game-winning shot versus Virginia Tech. That was a crazy scene, and that's what I want to see, cinematic endings, and that's what it pretty much was. It felt like a movie with all the pyro and everything at the end. That was pretty cool, don't you think?
Yeah, wasn't that Boopy? Wasn't Boopy the guy that made it?
Yeah, Miller. Yeah. Well, our last name's Miller.
Great, one of the great names in college basketball. Boopy.
Hey, you know, I got to give him credit. Absolutely. Let's go down to another team, Seton Hall, for example. They lost to UConn this week, 69-64. However, both teams equally missed a ton of free throws, and Seton Hall is now ranked 25. Quite honestly, one of the better teams in the Big East right now. So they're ranked. They're at 25. They have a big game today versus Butler at noon on TNT. But if you look back at the UConn Seton Hall game, they both equally missed a decent amount of free throws. Seton Hall missed 9 free throws, 14 for 23. UConn went 16 for 26. They missed 10 free throws. On top of that, the 3 points from both sides weren't the best, and I think that was a big struggle. And if the Seton Hall would have made a couple of those free throws, I think Seton Hall could have won that game. But that game goes to show that Seton Hall is for real. You know, they didn't lose big. They kept the game close, and they could have won that game. And Bill, if you're still watching and you know more about this, you were at the game, you could tell us more about the Seton Hall game. But Yeah, this is a surprise to see that Cino is really for real and in it.
I'm actually glad that you brought this up because literally in my notes, I had Seton Hall, who has impressed me more than I could possibly. It's got to impress you, and you're a student at that school. But
Absolutely.
to hang tough with UConn shows me that yes, they are a team to be reckoned with. They're in the top 25. I don't know that they can sustain this and go against some of the top teams, like Arizona number one and Iowa number two. They lost. I think the biggest surprise though, is how well they played against UConn. Like
Yes,
you
they did.
guys, you guys are cracked the top. That's pretty good. I
And
think the biggest
that was a
surprise for
close
me
game.
though was
Yeah, go ahead. What was your big surprise?
I think the biggest, yeah, my biggest surprise team. And here's we talked about Indiana and football never being relevant. When was Nebraska relevant in college basketball? And they're undefeated right now, so they're a team that's just
Yeah.
basically come out of nowhere. I guarantee they were not in anybody's top preseason 25, and yet they're undefeated. That's a big surprise to me. Um, but yeah, being number one, we've always talked about it. Arizona's been hanging on there, but Michigan lost, and now Iowa State lost. So, the college rankings change weekly. And like I said, being in the top five of the rankings doesn't guarantee anything. So that's what's so exciting about college basketball, and that's why I love it.
Absolutely. And I want to bring up one last point from the college basketball. A big change this weekend in the transfer portal, because as we all know, the NIL, the transfer portal, none of us like it. And we know why and our reasons. But the NCAA announced a new transfer portal rules this week for basketball. Starting this year, the transfer window in men's and women's basketball will open up for a 15-day period the day after the championship game for the respective March Madness tournaments. If a head coach change occurs, a 15-day period will open 5 days after the new head coach is hired or publicly announced. The previous changes took place during March Madness. So what that means is the whole transfer portal started during March Madness. Now it's starting after March Madness, which is some pretty big stuff. So now the coaches, the organizations, the players can now just focus on the game, not worried about being transferred in the middle of a tournament. So that is very good, positive news from the NCAA, in my opinion.
Yes, good point. Good point, Eli.
We have William Hathaway calling in, so let's bring him on. Good morning, William.
Hey, good morning, Jim. Good morning, Eli. How are you doing today, man?
I'm
We're
doing
doing
great. How are
well,
you?
William.
Guys, I see you in my topic of discussion about college basketball. Yeah,
Sure.
Eli, that was a tough game for Seton Hall. They kind of missed in the first half. You're talking about free throws. That's your Nick of Seton Hall. They missed a lot of free throws, but they actually came back in this game. It was a great game by both teams, but Seton Hall needs to regroup today against Butler. And another topic you guys were talking about. I don't know if you guys got into the college basketball scandal yet. That's a sad thing that when athletes or people that as I say, try to put something in athletes' head to bet on games. It's an unfortunate incident, but we move on to that. Jim, let me ask you a question, man, about the Johnnies. I see you was at the Johnnies and Providence game. What do you think about the transition, like teams, like in the Big East, like any given day, a team could be up on it in the Big East and down on the Big East. St. John's has taken a slippery rope this season. What's your take on that? And what is your take on a portal, like in reference to having I think Eli was talking about a signing period, some type of signing period.
Yeah, transfer opens up after March Madness. Yeah.
Well, I think listen, William, St. John's, after their magical run, let's call that last year.
Exactly.
What I took away from that game was outside of Ejiofor, they don't have a lot of other players. He's the guy that scores the 35 points a game for them. And I
Exactly.
didn't see a lot of other things. So I don't think they're going to be the contender. And I think if they get matched up with Seton Hall and the way Seton Hall has been playing, I think they could beat St. John's. And Providence is just went
Did
under 500.
Eli, did Providence beat Creighton last night?
Let me take a look for you. I did not see that, but
I think Providence beat Creighton last night at Creighton or at Providence. I'm not for sure.
Well, I know they
Providence
did lose.
93-88, and Providence was home.
Yeah.
You see, a team like Providence is good. They're a surprising team in the Big East. Another surprising team, like Jim said, St. John's. St. John's was on the high, and now they're in the middle. What Danny Hurley said at his press conference after the Kinetic game, he doesn't want to see Seton Hall in any type of NCAA format against his team because Adam Clark, Elijah Fisher, the whole entire Seton Hall team is good, but they have to regroup. They have to get a win against Butler. This is a key home match at the Rock. I'll be there. So this team has to regroup itself when beating Butler and going forward. If they're a team right now could probably move up in the top 25. You'll probably see it later in the season. So another surprising team. I think you were talking about what was you talking about? Nebraska. What were you talking about? Nebraska team, right?
Yeah, they're undefeated.
Yeah, they're undefeated. And another surprise women's team that I'm going to see at the Rock is Vanderbilt. They're going to be taking part in the Coretta Scott Classic in Newark on Monday. I'll be there. I guess Vanderbilt, Ohio State, and the two other teams. I don't know for sure, but that's an annual game that they play at the Rock. Vanderbilt is a surprise team in the women's college basketball. They're undefeated, and we'll see what happens.
Side too, William. They're good in the men's side too.
Okay.
Yep. But listen,
So
thanks for your college hoops insight. I'm glad, and I know you're excited about the Seton Hall thing, and good luck at the Coretta Scott King tournament this weekend on Monday. Thank you, William.
Okay. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you so much.
I'll see you.
Enjoy the game.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Now that's a loyal listener right there. Thank you, William.
That is, and we appreciate it, William, as always. Let's go now into some random points sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. I'll kick it all off to start it off.
Yep.
Let's begin with this. After 30 years at ESPN, David Kraft, the vice president of news, will officially retire in April, so that's a new vacancy open at ESPN. Kaylee Hartog will, from Thursday Night Football on Prime Video, will join NBC's sideline reporting coverage for the Super Bowl in February. So you could expect her on the sideline.
Yeah, I think she's pretty good, actually.
I thought she's pretty good. So good to see her joining the Super Bowl broadcast.
Yep.
For those that ride New Jersey Transit and Amtrak starting February 15th, new NJ Transit schedules will go into effect, including potential and even larger delays as they enter the cut work period, which means more work is going to be happening on the new Portal Bridge, replacing the old 100-year-old bridge. Basically what's going on is they're changing electricity to the new tracks, and during this time, some rail lines on the Northeast Corridor especially will be going to Hoboken instead of New York. You'll see some service changes, reduced services, longer travel times, and one-track service in between Secaucus and Newark. So be sure to allow extra time if you're traveling. The expected timeline is February 15th to March 15th, so plan accordingly if you're using NJ Transit or Amtrak within that time period. It will even happen during the weekdays, so there is no excuses this time, because it's the final stages to get the bridge open. Okay. Trevor Noah will return to host the Grammys in February, and for any Broadway fans out there, the last chance to see Alicia Keys' Tony-winning Broadway show, Hell's Kitchen, on Broadway, will be closing on February 22nd. That'll be the show's last day as it'll come off the air. I heard it's a very good show. Won some Tonys. Alicia Keys also has great music. Of course, New York is one of them. The Empire State of Mind. Everybody knows that song if you're a New Yorker here. And finally, SNL's all new tonight with Stranger Things' Finn Wolfhard and as your host, and ASAP Rocky as your musical guest.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jim.
All right, Eli. Thanks for the. Yeah, I know you are resident mass transit experts, and thank you. And our audience, I'm sure, appreciates the insight. Thank you. Okay, I got a couple of random points, and one was a story that
All right,
came
you got
out
it.
with, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, and I know his name has been kind of bandied about as potential. I've always said he's not going anywhere, but he had a situation, and it's just bad publicity that, his son was at a wrestling tournament, I think, and he was, accused of battery. So there was an interaction with one of the coaches and so forth. You got to stay away from things like that. You're just a father here. Don't get involved with this. I don't know how much credibility it is, but it's just kind of bad press for Marcus Freeman. He's an outstanding guy, and like I said, I think the only job he would ever leave Notre Dame for would be Ohio State, because that's where he played. Eli, there was an interesting, as a matter of fact, quite ugly scene. The Hershey Bears, and you're a hockey guy too. In between periods, they sometimes have the little peewee guys play a couple-minute game. This was
Oh, the fight. Yeah, that was awesome.
it was so disturbing. I mean, you have to put this on the coach.
No, it's hockey. It's hockey.
Not at 8 years old. It's not. No, it's not. This is.
Hey, you know what? I think I enjoyed it personally.
Yeah, from an amusement perspective, yes, but you got to blame this on who's coaching these kids. Are they teaching sportsmanship, or are they teaching, to be like the Broad Street bullies of the 70s for the Flyers? It was an ugly scene, and it just, these kids don't need to have that mentality that, although fighting has always been a part of hockey, not at 8 years old. Teach them sportsmanship first and foremost.
There's two things I want to add to your point right there. Number one, sometimes it ain't so much the coaching, it's the parents as well. Because I noticed, especially with the younger kids, athletes and stuff, they'll listen to the parents or what the crowd says. And if the crowd says, fight, do this, do that, or if the parents say, okay, do this, do that, who are they going to listen to? The parents or the coach? They're going to listen to the parents. And likely 90% of the time, I'm sure that's what the parents want. And
that's a fair point.
And I'm also sure that they watch plenty of hockey, and they know that hockey, there's fights, so they just thought it's acceptable to do that. And you know what? Nobody got hurt. So technically, a fair fight. They each got the penalty and respect the suspension in minutes. And you know what? I'm happy with the hockey fight. But absolutely. But I just want to point out, though, it's not so much the coaching. It also comes down to the parenting perspective.
That's absolutely.
I'm not saying that's the parents' fault. It could be other people. We don't know. It may not be just parents. It could be somebody else. It's not just the coach. We cannot blame it on that, especially in that type of level of play in all sports, not just hockey.
Good point. I could put some of that on the parents too. I get it.
Or just the fans.
It was an
maybe
ugly
it's their
scene.
relatives or whoever. It's not just the coach, and I want to clarify that because I've seen young athletes play in that type of level, not just in hockey, basketball, baseball, and I think it's really, what do the fans say? What happens off the ice, away from the coaches and players? Because that's really what determines a student's or athlete's mindset.
Okay. I got one other random point, and it was this young man named Adrian Stubbs, Arizona high school basketball player, who scored 100 points in 3/4 of a basketball game. And when we hear that milestone, obviously people listening know that Will Chamberlain obviously is the only score 100 points in a game, but this is a high school kid who scored 100 points in 3/4 of a high school basketball game. I don't know who they were playing.
Which high school is this?
It was a high school team.
What school is this?
In Arizona. I don't remember the exact name.
Of course.
But you got to keep an eye for college. I mean, he seems like he could miss a few free throws too. So it's crazy. It's 100 points. Wow. Can't remember the name of the school.
How do you like that?
Can't remember.
How do you like that? They're not showing the school, but they released the athletes. Would you like it? How do you like that? Maryvale High School.
Yeah, Maryville. Right. That's what it is.
Arizona.
You're right. You got it. right, that's it for me, Rand.
Is he not declaring for the NBA? Is he not declaring for the NBA draft yet? Because that's NBA draft style right there. I just want to point that out. I mean, that type of level.
I don't know if you can go from high
If you're
school.
doing that in a game,
I don't know if you can go from high school
yeah, I
to
mean-
the NBA right now. I think you have to.
okay, so college, because that's what what's his name did.
Yeah.
The Don Bosco
Cooper
kid.
Flag.
What's his name? Harper. John Harper. He did that. Yeah. All right. JR has
And
one
Cooper
comment.
Flag.
He says, "Do you think Michigan will win the national championship in men's basketball? Too early to tell. And March Madness is such a big tournament. It really all depends on who they play. It's still early to tell, but I'm going to go with no.
Yeah, I mean, they have been blowing most teams out, but they did suffer a loss. So, like I said, the top 10 teams in NCAA college basketball, you can't possibly predict it at this point of the season because we're pretty much only halfway through the season. So,
yeah. Well, it's now time for What's Your Recommendation and the Photos segment, sponsored by Vital Selections. You can scan the QR code to learn more. My recommendation this week, I'm not sure if you've seen the show, Jim. It's called The Good Place. It's streaming on Prime Video and Peacock. I started watching it season 1 this week, and I kind of got into it. It's a show about ethics, philosophy, and the afterlife, and I actually really got into the show. It's streaming on Prime Video and also on Peacock. I was watching on Prime a little bit for school, and it was actually a really good show, so I'm going to actually recommend that. So it's The Good Place. It ran on NBC from 2016 to 2020. It was around that time period. Really good show, though. Sitcom.
Okay.
It's now on Prime Video. Peacock.
good, because I'm looking for my next show as I wrap up Mad Men, which I recommended
You
2
know,
weeks
it's
ago.
kind of like some things are like corny and like dumb, but it's kind of show. It's like, okay, I kind of like it, and the lessons and everything. I'm like, I kind of like the show. It's like some of it's like, huh, and there's some episodes where it's like, well, I got to start watching this next episode then just to see what happens, even though I kind of know what happens, even though I've never seen it before. But yeah,
Well, I'm going to note that because I'm looking for my next binge watching show. Thank you.
And I thought it was pretty good. Yeah.
All right, and my recommendation, and again, he's one of comedy's all-time greats. I'm a big Norm Macdonald fan, and we lost him last year and so forth.
Course.
But I do get these clips of him. Excuse me. I just find him so funny. I think his last stand-up was called Hitler's Dog, and it could be deceiving. Nobody advocates Hitler, but his stand-up routine was so funny. I recommend if you haven't seen it, and I do think it was his last, at least public stand-up routine. It was so funny. He's one of the all-time great comedies. He has that unique delivery, and Norm will always be a comedy genius in my eyes, and I know other people would agree.
All right. JR, he actually sent some recommendations in. He says the one movie he recommends is called The Senior, and the other one is called Running the Bases.
Oh, cool. Okay.
All right. Well, appreciate the recommendations there, JR.
No, definitely. I was actually going to say we would love for our audience to give us some recommendations. Absolutely. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Let's go to some photos.
All right, Eli. Let me give you the backstory. So yesterday would have been my little brother's 61st birthday, and
wow,
I miss him terribly, and it brought up a lot of memories. One of my our listeners, Kenny, was a dear friend of Steven's as well, and it's a big loss. And when Bobby brought up Steven last week, it really touched my heartstrings. So wow. I wanted to put it up that he was a handsome man. He was a handsome young man. And there he is, as the 3-year starting quarterback at St. Joe's. He solidified his reputation as one of the all-time greats at St. Joe's.
Wow, very nice.
And there's me and Steven, and that was Mary Ellen. That's my sister who was calling in before. We had some technical issues, but she's the glue of the Monahan boys and so forth. And I think that picture is actually at my daughter's wedding. So.
Wow.
And there's our friend Tom Pugh, our resident Indiana Hoosier fan, and he's there with his wife Susan at the Indiana game a few weeks ago. And I know him and his Indiana graduate buddies. They're pumped and primed and ready for the big game on Monday night. And there's the one picture I had, and that's Kenny on the right, that's Steven on the left. And, you know, obviously I picked a picture where I was a little bit younger instead of this old decrepit guy that I am now. But that's a picture I'll treasure forever because
Wow.
Kenny's a dear friend of mine, and he kind of mentored Steven when he came to St. Joe's and so forth. So I have a very special place in my heart for him. So those are my pictures, and happy birthday in heaven, Steven.
Wow, and you know, the memories, it really is amazing. And you know, if you're on our channel, if you're a member of our subscribe to Sports Mono on YouTube, you could see the old videos when Steven was the original host of the show and all the great content stuff. So of course, if you're not a member, be sure to subscribe, because you know, some days I go there, watch the old shows, and you know, it's pretty amazing what you two had, the connection, everything. It's really something. And you know,
it was.
Yeah.
I miss him.
We do have some notable passings to report.
Okay, I got a few, and let me start off first and foremost with this was a big loss for me, and it's not always about sports. It's about influencing of when we were growing, or I was growing up. But Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead passed, and I had an opportunity to see him on many occasions. And you know, you don't have to be a deadhead to appreciate how well respected he was in the business and the era that he grew up in. And you know, this is a big loss for me. And I've been listening to some old Grateful Dead on the way driving in the car and so forth. And I was just a huge fan of his, and he was certainly beloved in the music industry. That's a big loss. He was 78 years old, but what a great entertainer he was. Amazing.
I'm sure. Yeah, that's amazing.
Okay, I got two other ones, Eli. Scott Adams, and I know a lot of our audience is well aware of the Dilbert cartoon that he created, and many years poking fun at corporate America, which I'm quote unquote technically a part of for now until our show goes national. Then I'll give that up. But Scott Adams, he was 68 years old. And former NHL player Jason Lafreniere, who played for the Rangers and the Nordiques, he was only 59 years old, and he had 87 points in 146 games. So he had a very short career, but he also was a pretty good player. I think injuries derailed his career. That's who I have for notable passings. But Bob Weir, that's a big one.
Absolutely. Well, we had a really great show this week. We appreciate all the callers, for those who commented. We appreciate it all. We thank you so much. We'll be back next week at our normal time, 10 o'clock, right here on Sports with Mono and Mono. Enjoy the football this week. That's what's exciting.
Oh, I know our fans are chomping at the bit, and you know, we got snow coming in the Northeast, so it's a perfect setting to do nothing but sit on the couch and watch
some football
the entire weekend.
Some pizza, some wings, and you got it.
You got it, Eli. Great show for you too, and thank you, and thanks to our callers and William and so forth. And like I said, I wanted to give a shout out to Kenny Backer, because he was Steven's mentor, and you know, they both won the Kramer Award at St. Joe's as the best athlete at that school. So that's very special to me. So thank you. And like I said, please send us messages at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com, or join us on the show live next week at 10. Eli, have a great week, my friend.
Great day. Take care, everyone. Bye.